what is it like to work at a European institution within the United States?
I must say it's challenging because we, as much as Europeans and Americans and Europeans share the same fundamental values. We stand for human rights, we stand for the rule of law, we stand for respect of the others and minorities and those who are different. So on this, I really, we feel part of the same adventure in life. At the same time, if you go a bit deeper, we don't always have the same sense of where we organize our society, the role we want the government or the public authorities to play. So it can be challenging, I must say, especially in the last year with the new president at the White House. Certainly the positions are more contrasted, and so it is more challenging in the sense that even if most of my interlocutors in Washington continue to be the same as before, which is respecting these values, the tone has changed, and we have some difficulties with that. But that's what makes also the relationship and the life in Washington interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you. And the second part of that question was, how are the dynamics of the European Parliament in Brussels versus the U.S. Congress in Washington different? How are they similar?
So first of all, even if Europe is an old continent, the EU process, the EU integration process is rather new. Actually, we just celebrated the 60 years of it, so it's a new process. Compared to it, Congress is an old institution, and they have more, they have developed certain habits, certain cultures that are not the same for us. So we are in a process at the Parliament to invent our institution, our political life, our culture. So in that sense, we can be more innovative. For example, we have created a research service at the image of the CRS.
Yes.
But instead of keeping our studies for ourselves, we decided to put them online, which we could do because we had no precedent and our members admitted it. This is a more difficult process on the Hill. So this is to say that, we are both federal legislators, but the fact that we are, one is more ancient, the other one is more new, we have different cultures. Also, the fact that the European Parliament is a multinational environment and not a national environment, and a multi-political environment. In the European Parliament, we have more than 100 political parties represented, whereas at the Congress there are only 2. So all these make a lot of differences. So that's how it feels. So it feels at the same time very similar and at the same time very different.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Thank you. And then the second question, so switching gears here, what is the most challenging aspect of working with the U.S. Congress as the director of the European Parliament Liaison Office?
So I would say 2 things. First is even in Europe, it's hard to have to make the EU system decision process understand. Many Europeans do not understand how it works because it's very different from the national system. And I would say the same goes to Washington. Many people are not used so much to how the EU functions, and there's a lot of information/educational work to be done. The second aspect is that members of Congress spend many hours fundraising, working for the district, the constituency. Then they have to deal with national issues, and then they have to deal with national security issues. So it can be difficult to get their attention. That said, when we do that by talking shop, which is talking, for example, cybersecurity or digital or privacy or trade or foreign affairs, Iran, North Korea. So when you talk on nitty-gritty issues, you get the attention, and when you talk more generally, it's more difficult.
Okay, thank you. And the third question is, what are the cultural differences between working with members of the European Parliament versus the U.S. Congress?
So again, it's a bit the same. The European Parliament is a very so the similarities are that it's a political environment. So there's a lot of freedom of expression. There's a lot of interest in public policy and in ideals. So it's fascinating because we have the same. We are all political animals in a way. Those who work at Parliament or at Congress. The difference is that again, Our environment in Europe is very multifaceted. We have to deal with 8 caucuses, whereas there are only 2 on the Hill. We have many parties represented. We work in 24 languages, so it's very different to the Congress. And another thing that is mostly derived from the fact that we have all these languages in which we work is that we have to be extremely organized. The fact that you need interpreters for many meetings means that you cannot organize a meeting at the last minute very often. So you have to plan ahead, which means we have to be very organized and plan weeks ahead. On the Hill, as a difference, you can organize a thing at the last minute. Many things are done last minute, which is a great thing because we can organize things last minute with it, which is also problematic because we can't give guarantee to our members that they will be met by members of Congress or colleagues until the last minute, so we have difference of ways of organizing our work.
We attended a hearing on I guess it was on rule of law with Poland in Brussels last week, and it was very interesting because Poland was very adamant about the aspect of solidarity. And what are your thoughts on this? Because it's very different in the U.S. when you are, one country with a constitution versus an integrated continent. And do you see more challenges that the EU faces?
The EU is not only about a single market, about economic rules, about trade. The EU is about values. And as I mentioned before, these are many similarities we have with the US. We share the same feeling for protecting the rights of minorities, democracy, the rule of law. And when you to become a member of the EU, you have to make sure, and all the others make sure, that you do respect all these rules, that you have a judiciary that is independent, that you have rules of democracy that are functioning, and that can be sanctioned if there is an infraction. And the problem we have in certain countries is when those countries who are already in the EU deviate in a way or another from these principles, it's much more difficult. When you are a candidate, then you want to do everything to become a member, so you will make sure that you apply all the rules. Once you are a member, we don't have the others don't have the leverage that they have when they're dealing with a candidate country. So we have a number of cases, and I would say that maybe at the moment we spoke more about Poland, but it's also the case with Hungary and other countries. At certain moments of their belonging to the EU, certain countries can deviate from the rules that are rules applicable to all member states, and it's the duty of the EU institutions and especially of the Commission, which is the guarant of the treaties, to make sure that a country that deviates from the rules go back to the rules. So we have to impose sometimes sanctions, or we have to be tough with this country, because it is the kind of pact that we have when you become a member state of the EU. You oblige yourself and your citizens to respect those rules. If you don't do it, then you have to be sanctioned.
Thank you. And the next question is, how have recent events such as the announcement of Brexit and the US 2016 presidential election changed the dynamics of the relationship between the US and the EU?
So I would not necessarily say that the dynamics have been changed, but if it has changed, it is that, on the case of Brexit, I think that many Europeans after Brexit have begun questioning themselves on actually why have the Brits left the EU, and why should we stay or not. So it has triggered a debate in Europe that is very existential or fundamental on, at the end of the day, what is it to be part of the EU, what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages, and it had the merit to create this discussion. Of course, I would have preferred that the British people would have said yes. But I think that's democracy, and if they believe that they are better off, I think it's fine and it's respectable. But it has the merit for those who believe in the EU integration process to see this debate happening, and actually in the populations in most member states now have become much more European today than they were before Brexit. So that is an interesting development. In terms of the new President of America, the new administration, I think there are a number of issues on which we disagree. I think the new administration has different views on issues as essential as migration or trade or foreign affairs, the responsibility of America in the world, questions of human rights. So I think that these changes of attitude trigger some questions from Europe. I think at the same time we respect the choice of Americans, and we are dealing with the president who has been elected. At the same time, I think also we understand maybe even more that we attach to certain principles, and as much as with Brexit, the fact that there is this new president in Europe puts a lot of questions in Europe on actually what do we stand for, what our principles, on which our societies are based, and if we don't like certain things that we see now in America, it means that we believe these things are important. So in a way, it also helps building a certain narrative in Europe. This is, I think, a question that must be asked in Europe. What are we doing together? What is it to be European? What is the European identity versus other identities in the world? And I think that when there is a rupture, a change, be it the Brexit or the election of a new president in America or a major event of the kind, that obliges us to think collectively on our project. So I think that in a way it is a good thing that we are obliged to stop a minute and reflect and maybe then start from a more secure grounding.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I did a project on in March, and just how, like you were saying, how it is a very incredible campaign, right, and not very traditional. And Macron, it was essential, I would say,
yeah,
for the EU,
yes,
that
absolutely,
he won,
yeah,
since Le Pen is not pro-EU at all.
Mm-hmm.
And also the election in September in Germany with, yeah, Merkel remaining the chancellor. Do you think these offset maybe the election in the US or Brexit, or kind of gave the EU some more momentum?
Yeah, certainly. I think that we could have feared, at least for those who are liberal and pro-European, like me, many people in Brussels. We could have feared that after the elections in the US and the referendum in the UK, we could have had a rise of populism or demagoguery or politicians who are against liberalism or a more open Europe. And actually we got the reverse. So I think this is, for those like me who are pro-European, this is good news. Now we have no reason not to build a stronger Europe. I think that both Macron and the next government in Germany, together with all the others, of course, will have the responsibility to make the best use possible of these elections, and to begin this discussion, to continue this discussion with the Europeans on what is our project, what do we want to do together. I think the European project has been done probably too much in the last 60 years by the elites. I think we have too often disregarded what the people wanted to say. And I think we cannot. The European project is not sustainable if we continue at these rhythms. So I think we have to engage in a conversation between Europeans, even if we speak 24 languages. But we have to have one discussion on what is it we want to do together, what do we stand for, and why is it better to do some things together and to share sovereignty than not. Nobody knows the answer. I hope the Europeans will go for a more integrated Europe, and that they will believe deeply that the advantages are more important than the reverse. But that's a discussion we must have, and I believe that the elections we had this year put us in the right context to have it.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, what do you think the future relationship between the US and the EU looks like? And what would you recommend the top 3 priorities on the agenda of the 2 major powers working together be?
So I believe on the long term, this is a relation that is there to last, because again, if you look at the map of the world and the values that we collectively represent and stand for are essential, and even sometimes we tend to take these values for granted, but we often realize that they are a luxury and they are fantastic, and we need to continue to promote our ideas of freedom and respect of the others, of dignity of the person. I think that in the short term there may be some bumps. There are some bumps because we don't always agree on a number of things at the moment. But we also realize in Europe that America is a very diverse and complex entity and country, and we discover the voices that maybe so far were not so heard, of the states, of the big cities, of the NGOs, of mayors. So there are a number of forces in America that maybe were less heard in Europe, that maybe today are more heard, so that's an advantage. If I would say the three main things that we should do is really continue, discuss and try to agree as much as we can on making sure that we promote our values, mostly human rights and all issues that tend to ensure the dignity of the person, and to try to defend this model and to promote this model everywhere. You know, when I travel in the world, to Asia, to Africa, to South America, I realize that, you know, when people talk about Europe and America, they really believe that we represent an ideal. We are certainly not perfect, but we represent ideals that they share and that they aspire to. So I think we should not renounce that. So certainly the debate on human rights and fundamental values should be continue to be one of the essential links between the EU and the US. Certainly we could do better on trade. I think it is not normal that the EU on its part has a number of trade agreements with many important countries or regions in the world, that the US does the same, but that the two main traders and economic forces in the world do not have a common agreement. So I think this is something that we should go back to the table of negotiation and try to get agreements on what we can agree on, and then we can build on that. And finally, I think we need to work together on the key issues of the privacy issues. We live in a world where technologies are omnipresent, but with new technologies comes the question of protecting the rights and privacy of the people. And this is, I think, an issue on which Americans and Europeans are very adamant to have strong legislations and to be protected as much as they can. Of course, we should not hinder innovation. Innovation should still be promoted, but I think we have to find a balance between the business and innovation and the right of the people to have to protect their privacy. So I believe that probably there are many other issues, fight against terrorism, cybersecurity, but if I had to say three major issues, I would certainly have these three amongst them.
Okay, thank you. And the last question is, what is the biggest piece of advice that you would have for current master's students at JMU and JMU alumni looking to apply their knowledge of the European Union into their careers?
Well, I would tell them two things. I would tell them first, try to do what you want in life. So try to find your passion or what you're comfortable with, and try to build your future there. I think I've been lucky enough in my life to have my work that is also my passion, which is the European integration. So I feel very fortunate that I was able to combine my professional life with what I really believe in. My second advice would be, if they care for the European integration, help the European people to help themselves, which is to make sense of the new narrative of the EU integration process. I think that we have, if you are a millennial today, if you are 18, 20, 25 years old, you don't really care about, well, you do care about, but you take for granted the fact that Germany and France, for example, will now go to war against the other. But so we have to find together, we have to determine what is our new story, what is our common story. And I think that it is the interest, if you're American, it's your interest that Europe remains a stable partner. We have a lot of uncertainties at the east of Europe, with the Middle East, with the war in Syria and many unstable countries. We have a lot of difficulties in the south, in Africa. So we need, I think America needs to have a stable partner, and a partner that is strong enough to promote stability in this neighborhood. And I think Europe will only be strong if its people deeply understand what brings them together, what is their common story, and what is their common story. So I would say that if you care for this European integration, and if you care for the Transatlantic bond and durable, lasting relationship, I think you should maybe help Americans on one side to choose a way of dealing with things that is not closed but open. And we have at the moment this question whether the Americans have opted recently for a closed or an open solution to the problems. When you look at trade and migration issues, you can believe that they have rather opted for closed. So, okay, nothing is definitive, but care for that and then care for the European story. And I think that if we care for the two things and we find solutions, then our future is guaranteed.
Yes, that's a great point. I know coming here and learning about the EU, my eyes have been open to a new way of thinking as well, seeing the different cultures and how the EU functions versus the US, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of, well, as you told us, a lot of differences. So I know it's given me a new perspective as well. So even for those alumni not working directly with the EU, I think they have a new way of thinking.
I think there's nothing like going out of your country, and I think I learned a lot on Europe by living in America. And I'm sure you do the same when, as an American, you live in Europe. I think going away from home and seeing things with a certain perspective and distance is very healthy, and then you come back home with new ideas, and you can start again.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, well, those are all our questions, so thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Thank you.